You're wishing that happened.
Before the press conferences even start. I mean, we could talk for 45 minutes just about how atrocious the defense is. And good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, as always, every Monday through Friday morning, 8:30 a.m. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Smash that like button. Smash that share button. Retweet button on Twitter. And make sure you head over to the YouTube page, hit the thumbs up. Subscribe button, especially if you enjoy the program. We're here every single day. And we're trying to build this new brand, Trending in the AM on DSM Media, this morning show, taking over. It's also the best place to get involved with the show on the YouTube page, where I can put your comments, like these examples, right up on the screen. And, interact with Jason and I as we put this show on every single morning. So, like I said, I am Phil Stifle, your host, Beard of Knowledge on Twitter. My co-host this morning, as always, is Jason Voorhees at Mustang3651. Good morning, Jason. How you doing today?
Doing great, man. Recovered from the busy day of Valentine's Day in retail,
Busy day, 2 days in a row in retail. You're in the food business. I'm in the food business at a restaurant. You got the food store. The fact that the Super Bowl and Valentine's Day were back to back, that's never happened to my knowledge ever before. But our old asses cannot handle 2 days like that in a row. I don't know about you, but my back hurts, my leg hurts, my feet hurt. Literally, my whole body aches at this point.
So, fun fact, and I would have never guessed this, but what would you think the number one Super Bowl cracker is?
The number one Super Bowl cracker.
The
well, it's obviously not Ritz then, if based off of what you're saying.
It's not.
Okay. The knockoff store brand? I don't know.
Pepperidge Farm Goldfish.
Pepperidge Farm Goldfish
is the number one Super Bowl cracker.
Wow, that's it. Is it goldfish considered a cracker?
Well, I mean, they're crackers. They're
more like I just think of them more as a picking food. Crackers I dip or spread on.
Well, yeah,
goldfish, I don't. Goldfish, I just take that Bobby size hand and stick it in the bag and say, I've got 77 goldfish in my hand.
I was shocked myself because I would have guessed Ritz, but the number two is Cheez-Its.
Okay, yeah, Cheez-Its.
And then I believe Ritz is number three.
Cheez-Its have come a long way because Cheez-Its are a lot more than just the plain Cheez-Its. They got so many different flavors and variety boxes there are. That's interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. All right, so we just start this show off with a blast talking crackers here, but we got lots to talk about today. Today's agenda. Sorry, George, it's not going to be a show geared towards viewers to start. We really actually haven't talked James Harden on the morning show yet because James Harden happened on Thursday afternoon. Friday was all Super Bowl. Yesterday was all Super Bowl. Today we're going to talk some James Harden. I got some interesting James Harden topics, just how it's going to integrate with the Sixers. And, leading up to the All-Star break, which is coming up here in a few days. And, we're going to talk Sixers, definitely a little bit more. Then we're going to talk a little bit, Jason suggested he wants to talk about Cooper Kupp and his elite season and where it ranks with other wide receivers in NFL history. I want to touch on the Kyler Murray situation that's going on in Arizona. Hey, you guys are all hating my obnoxiousness with Russell Wilson. Tell me Kyler Murray's available. I'm going to be even 10 times more obnoxious and going all in on Kyler Murray. But anyway, we are going to talk Sixers, and that is going to be, yes, exactly. James Harden's at noon. Ben Simmons is at 11:30 for press conferences today. Yeah, today's going to be an interesting day. We're going to talk Ben Simmons. Don't you worry, Mark. Absolutely going to talk a little Ben Simmons today because he's really grinding my gears today. He really is. But let's start with Sixers, and let's start with James Harden and the fact that James Harden is, like I said, He's here. He's in Philly. We've seen all the videos of him practicing. We've seen all the videos of him working out with the team. He looks fit. He looks good. The Sixers have said they're going to hold him out till after the All-Star break just to make sure that hamstring is 100%, which is a really smart move. They have 26 games left, 24 after the All-Star break. You want him to be able to play as many of those 24 as possible. So giving him 2 more games off here before the All-Star break is not a big deal. They're not letting him play in the All-Star game. Also, a very big deal. But right after the trade went down, I want to start with this, Jason. Right after the trade went down, I put a post out there, a Twitter poll. It's got about 200 votes on it. Who has more pressure on them to win a title right now? And I put Joel Embiid, James Harden, Doc Rivers, and Daryl Morey. And the reason why I put all 4 of those names on the list, Joel Embiid, because he's gotten close. He's still fairly young, but he hasn't gotten over the hump yet. And he needed that extra star. Ben Simmons wasn't the star. They got the star for him. So is there pressure on him? Doc Rivers, he has now been in this league coaching for 22 years. He's won 1 title. He's considered one of the greatest coaches of all time. I don't know if you saw that list. He was ranked in the top 10 of all time, but with only 1 title. He's only played in the finals twice in his career coaching. So is there pressure on him? James Harden. James Harden has now forced his way out of multiple cities in the last couple of years, and he's getting his wish again. Is there more pressure on him? Or Daryl Morey, who literally just put all his eggs in one basket. He tried last year to get, James Harden, couldn't. He tried this year. He finally did. He finally got his man to pair with Joel Embiid. Daryl Morey's never even made a finals with the team he's built. So where is the pressure the most? And I'm surprised. So just to recap, Joel Embiid was last on this poll. He got 12% of the votes. Daryl Morey was third at 19%. James Harden second with 29%. And Doc Rivers with almost 39% has the most pressure on him now to win a title. So I'm surprised at how the votes. I thought Daryl Morey was going to lead the way there because I kind of feel like there's a lot of pressure on Daryl Morey. But what's your thoughts on this poll and where the pressure really lies and on who?
I mean, I kind of disagree with. Well, I agree with the poll. I think the answer should be a lot easier.
Okay.
I think, to me, when you go and you get a player of James Harden's caliber and you look at the Sixers and where they're at in the East, I think the pressure's undoubtedly and the bullseye falls on Doc Rivers. I mean, to me, whatever your opinion is of Doc Rivers up to this point, as far as how he's been with the Sixers, you could always look and make an excuse or find excuses, whether it be, Ben Simmons still not getting better, guys being out with COVID. There's been a number of reasons why you could say, well, maybe we'll get this team turned around, but it's not really Doc Rivers, because in reality, Doc Rivers has done great wonders as far as developing players. I mean, I think that's one of his big strengths, and it's showing, especially with guys like Maxey, Tybal, even like the smaller level guys. But yeah, I think the pressure is definitely on Doc Rivers, because to me now he has the weapons in the stead. So there's really no excuse for this team not to go far. I mean, should they win a title with this team? I mean, I think you could make the case that the Bucks are still better. I see people out there saying the Nets are better. Like, I don't see how that.
We're going to talk Nets basketball.
A lot of those people are delusional because they're just expecting that Simmons is all of a sudden going to become this like stud now. But with that being said, like, I still think the Sixers have just as good a chance in the East to at least make a final. And if the team gets, if you get another good player in the buyout market, or next year maybe you get another, no matter what happens, this team should win a title now. So to me, that falls on the coach. I mean, Joel Embiid, is there pressure on him? Yeah, of course there's pressure on him, but Joel Embiid to me has risen to elite status to the point where in my opinion, right now, today, if we're just talking today, I think Joel Embiid is probably the best player in the NBA right now. Like, he's that good. Maybe he's top 3. We'll at least take top 3.
5. Yeah, absolutely. He's gonna be the best MVP season. But elite. You got Giannis. You got so many.
I'm just saying the way that he's playing.
Yeah, he's
At this
playing
moment in time, he's playing that type of basketball. And then you add James Harden, who's definitely a top 10. I think he's still top 5, but maybe I'm overrating him. And
well, it's funny because everyone's trying to say that James Harden is at the downward part of his career already, and he's not doing what he used to, but he's still averaging over 22 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, and almost 11 assists a game. So he's averaging almost a triple double at 33 years old. Yeah, his shooting percentage isn't quite what it used to be, but he's still a supremely dominant player in the NBA. I think the biggest issue with the drop off with James Harden is just availability, because he's had lingering hamstring issues now for several years in a row. That's why I'm so okay with him, sitting out 2 extra games, just to make sure that hamstring's right. But back to Doc Rivers, and I agree. I got some pressure on Daryl Morey for sure. But Doc Rivers, man, he was just voted one of the top 10 greatest coaches of all time. And what's Doc Rivers done? He did win a title with Boston, and he made a second finals with Boston. But I just look at that stretch with the Clippers, where he was winning 69% of his games, 68% of his games, 65% of his games every single year. And not only did he not make the finals, he didn't even make the Eastern Conference Finals most of those years. He just couldn't get out of the second round of the playoffs, ever. And Doc Rivers has had those Clippers teams. I mean, he had, prime elite Blake Griffin. He had prime elite Chris Paul. JJ Redick when he was in his prime. I mean, he had some really great teams there in LA. Couldn't get over the hump. Boston, only winning one championship in Boston with the team that he had there. It's insane. So there is definitely a lot of pressure on him. But Daryl Morey, I still go back to Daryl Morey because Daryl Morey has just been, everything in Houston. He won Executive of the Year in Houston 1 year, but didn't make the finals. Didn't even make the Eastern Conference Finals. He comes to Philly, and literally since the second he's been in Philly, he has been working on getting James Harden here. He hasn't done anything else to try to, any other trades to really. Last year's big trade was George Hill, which was an important piece. It didn't work out, but it was an important piece. He seems so dead set and focused on getting James Harden here to pair with Joel Embiid. And that's why the most pressure's on him. Because if Joel Embiid and James Harden work out, Daryl Morey's a genius. If they don't, it was him that orchestrated this move to get this pair together. And he put all his focus on just this one pair instead of trying to go out and make other moves. This was his whole focus for 2 years was to pair these two guys. So if it works, he's a genius. If he doesn't, he's insane. And that's why I feel the pressure should be on Daryl Morey, because it was his decision to focus 2 years straight on just trying to get this duo together.
That's a fair point. I didn't really think of it that way. But
yeah, because I'm not trying to say, I'm just trying to say in the sense that, that this duo, that the players, I think, have no pressure on them whatsoever. I think it's got to be on the coach and the GM. Well, not even the GM, because he's not the GM. People forget Elton Brand's technically still the GM of this team.
Well, let's face it. James Harden, do you think he has pressure? He's just orchestrated his way off 3 different teams in the last 3 years. I don't think he gives it rat's ass about what people think about him. Honestly, I think I think it's overblown and overstated that he's not a good person, because I don't believe that. I believe that he wants to win. I believe he wanted to be with Daryl Morey this whole time. It's obvious that, he wanted to come to the Sixers. He friggin' FaceTimed the owners of the Nets, telling them to get me to Philly. So while you say that, Morey, yes, it will either look like a genius or
an idiot.
I agree, but that's definitely not. You can't blame a GM if a player doesn't work out, in the fact that it's not like he went and got a middle level guy. He went and got James Harden. And that's why I was I couldn't believe some of the people still complaining and saying, oh, we gave up too much, or
oh my God,
we did this, or even the people that didn't want to give up. Listen, I didn't want to give up Maxey, but just say they had to. Just say they had, instead of Curry, they had to give up Maxey, and they did it, and they got the deal. you got James Harden. Like, I don't understand why some people are like acting like James Harden is not, like you said, even if he is in the downturn of his career, he's at worst the top 10 player in the NBA. And so now he's the best player that's ever suited up next to Joel Embiid. Like, that to me in itself should be like, that should have everybody excited as hell. Like, dude, we got James
There were
Harden.
people last night. So last night, the Brooklyn Nets broke their 10-11 game losing streak. And Seth Curry went off for 23 points. He led the team in scoring Brooklyn last night. And everyone's like, oh, why did we have to give up Seth Curry? Daryl Morey's an idiot for trading away. Dude, Seth Curry had to lead the team in scoring last night because Durant is still out. Kyrie Irving can't play in Brooklyn. Ben Simmons is still out. So who else? The Brooklyn Nets lost 9-10 games in a row for a reason, because they're a bad team without any stars playing. I mean, Blake Griffin, this team is so bad. Blake Griffin was still only able to play 3 minutes, and he's one of their highest paid players on that team. That's how bad this team. Okay, so I don't want to hear Blake Griffin or the Nets or why do we have to trade Seth Curry? Dude, he put up 8. He led the team in shots last night. We saw Seth Curry doing that here in Philly. But still, Seth Curry he's a role player. People freaking out about the loss of Seth Curry still.
This is where I'm at.
It's driving me nuts.
I almost feel like we could have got like a LeBron James at this point and people would still be complaining. It's mind-boggling to me. Like, I look at other teams, like, so I look at baseball and it would be like getting like James Harden in baseball terms would be like the Phillies adding like, a Nolan Arenado to already having Bryce Harper, or like even better than Nolan Arenado, like a Mookie Betts. Like, it's a top player. Like, why are people not more excited? I don't understand. It's like, it's almost like
exciting, but then there's always those people that are
the Negadelphia. Exactly. But it's frustrating because it's like, dude, I mean, I love James Harden. I mean, I told you this off the air. Like, he's obviously always been since his early days, he's been one of my favorite players in the NBA. And like, I just love like the whole persona, like the beard and just everything.
I was shaving my beard. It's not coming off anymore. It's got to stay on for at least as long as James Harden's in Philly.
He just looks so badass. Like now that they're showing him like.
Did you see the video of him? He was working out yesterday and shoot around, and he's doing his step back shot. That I used to hate his step back shot because it looks like a travel. It's not, but it looks like a travel. But Tyrese Maxey's right next to him, learning, literally already. He's already got the James Harden step back jumper in his arsenal from one day of just practicing with James Harden. I've never seen Tyrese Maxey take that type of a shot. Now all of a sudden he's sitting there knocking him down right next to it. I love Tyrese Maxey and how much of a sponge he is. He just literally will soak up anything that is next to him and learn and grow. That's why go ahead, trade away 20 Seth Currys. You kept Tyrese Maxey in this deal, and that's so invaluable right there.
Dude, spot on. I mean, I heard Scotty saying it. Like, that's like something that's not even being discussed. Right. The fact that not only did you get James Harden, but James Harden is going to mentor Maxey. Like, so it will almost be like the passing of the torch once James Harden kind of, gets older, and if he's off the team, Maxey's ready to go. Like, it's unbelievable that we're in this position. Like, we didn't give up Maxey. We didn't give up Tybalt. Like, so we still have that defensive presence. Like,
young core is still
here. Love it. I love this. I think this team, regardless of what happens, I'm excited for this next run, after the All-Star break and what it's going to bring for us Sixers fans. Like, just to be able to see. And Joel Embiid, before we even made this deal, you could just see he's so much happier this year. Like, and I'm telling you, it's Simmons. The lack of Simmons has made Embiid like.
I mean, we could talk about that Saturday game. After the game that Joel Embiid had on Saturday night against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not just the superstar dunk that everyone wants to talk about, but 40 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals in 33 minutes played. Let me repeat that. 33 minutes played, 40 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals. Do you know only one player in Sixers history has ever put up a stat line like that? Will Chamberlain.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
I mean, I think that kind of sums it up right there, right? I mean, it was an amazing performance. And he even in the last 2, Joel Embiid has looked great all year. But those last 2 games, since the Simmons trade has happened, you can just see a whole like weight lifted off the entire team's shoulders. Doc Rivers doesn't even look miserable on the sidelines anymore. All of a sudden, he looks like a happy coach. And he traded away his son-in-law and his grandkids out of town, and he still looks happier instantly. Ben Simmons is gone, which is interesting because I do want to spend a few minutes talking about Ben Simmons. Two different reasons. One, how the hell does he go from this awful person that won't play for his team and this and that, all of a sudden the media making him out to be this great person. He's like this media darling all of a sudden. He's going to turn the Nets around. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's going to fit perfectly there. Dude, this guy just sat out almost an entire season, and you guys spent how long bashing the guy? Now all of a sudden, he's a media darling. So that's part one of what is pissing me off a lot.
And meanwhile, James Harden's the villain.
Yeah, if James Harden was not the villain, and now all of a sudden is the villain. It's like literally, as soon as the trade went down, Brooklyn's a more important city because it's in New York, the script just instantly switched. It drives me nuts. And the other aspect of it is the mental illness issues. And I've tried so hard to stand up for Ben Simmons this year in that aspect. Because if he was really suffering, you don't want to bring the guy down even more because God forbid something, would happen if it was a serious issue. But all of a sudden, day after the trade goes through, he's practicing with his team. First game since the trade goes through, he's sitting on the bench with his team. If you've got such a mental illness, it doesn't just instantly cure in one day. And that's really pissing me off as well. Because it's really like not just the media script flip, but Ben Simmons' script flipped. And I don't want to say he made up the mental illness issue. But it's awfully convenient that all of a sudden, Steve Nash was quoted saying yesterday in his press conference, Ben Simmons is in a great state mentally right now.
Well, it's obvious that he's in a great state mentally. He didn't want to be here. I think it's going to end up showing, but I don't think he cares that much about basketball.
Yeah,
so they can say that all they want, that he's in a better state. I think with his ego, it didn't matter what happened. It didn't matter if he went to the worst team in the NBA. He didn't want to be in Philly because he can't take criticism. He thinks the fans are assholes because we expect him to be better. He can't stand Joel Embiid because Joel Embiid called him out, which he deserves.
How's he going to handle Kevin Durant? Because Kevin Durant is even more obnoxious. Like Joel Embiid subtly and like he'll like tweet you out. He'll call you out different ways. Kevin Durant's literally going to put his arms up in the middle of the game and call you out on the court.
Well, he's not going to be able to handle it, and you're going to see the same thing is going to end up happening there because right now, yes, it's convenient for him to be the media darling because, like you said, New York's a bigger city. I think the media, national media, is always against Philly. So I think they're rooting for Ben Simmons because they want Philly to get an FU. Think about it. No, because now, how all of a sudden is James Harden, who was a great guy, all of a sudden he's a villain. He's a bad teammate. He is this. He is that. I could tell you right now that, okay, yes, you could sit there and point your finger and say, well, James Harden has kind of orchestrated where he wanted to go. But James Harden went to Brooklyn thinking that he was going to be playing with Kevin Durant again.
Yeah.
And Curry.
Kyrie.
I'm sorry, Kyrie. Kyrie is an absolute talk about having two guys that are like either cancer or just crazy.
He's just crazy. I don't know. He's Kyrie is straight basketball talent.
Mr. Flat Earth, Kyrie.
He's an amazing basketball talent, one of the greatest talents I've ever seen. But he just is such a freaking head case.
Mr. Flat Earth. But anyway, I mean, I saw those memes about James Harden. This is James Harden when he doesn't have to hear about Flat Earth anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but the bottom line is, like, I think it's the way that sports are going. Like, you can point your finger at James Harden, but he's not the first guy that's done this. Like, there's so many people doing it. You had in the NFL, you had Aaron Rodgers wanting out of Green Bay. Like, all these players know that they really hold the cards, even though it's not set in stone that it's going to happen. They know that they can say, well, I'm not happy here and I want out. Because realistically, what are teams going to do? Like, what were the Sixers supposed to do? Just sit there and let Ben Simmons collect money or just keep finding him? But it's like it's not helping the situation. So James Harden kind of did what he wanted to do. And okay, does that make him a bad person? I think James Harden just wants to win. At the end of the day, I think he wants to win a title. And I think he said to himself,
"You don't want to win a title in any sport. That's a big problem if you don't want to win a title."
Yeah, but I think he figured where's the best shot right now, and I think everyone who wouldn't want to play with Joel Embiid at this point in his career. I mean,
all right. So let's look at the schedule. Let's look at the team tonight. They're going up against the Celtics, a red hot Celtics team. They've won 8 games in a row. They're finally starting to climb up the rankings. All the talk about breaking up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I don't know why they were talking about that because I don't know why you'd want to break up that pair. But they did, and they didn't break them up. They've made some minor tweaks to the team and all. Outside James Harden, the Sixers are completely healthy, which is really good. Everybody's back. Shake Milton is back. That's really good. The Sixers are favored to win tonight, and rightfully so. I believe so. Hold on a second. What happened to my screen here? Anyway, so they got tonight, and then they've got Thursday night in Milwaukee. Okay, and that's a really big game against the Bucks. Then they got the All-Star break. Then they come back. James Harden comes back from the All-Star break, playing for the Sixers right from the get-go. Jump out with a couple pretty easy games. New York, back-to-back. Then Cleveland. But I'm circling this stretch right here. You got Friday, March 4th against Cleveland at home. Then Saturday, March 5th on the road in Miami. Then Monday, home against the Bulls. And Thursday, home against Brooklyn. You got 4 teams, and I'm kind of circling with my mouse on my screen here. You got 4 playoff teams, 2 of which, Miami and Brooklyn, not just the rivalry with Brooklyn now because James Harden's here and Ben Simmons is there, but that is like probably the 4 toughest game stretch that you have this season left on the schedule. So you need that Minnesota, New York, and New York game to kind of integrate James Harden pretty quickly, because then you have 4 super difficult games. I know we just beat Cleveland, but Cleveland is still a really good team. Miami's first in the East. Chicago's still a really good team. And Brooklyn, while their record is bad, by that point, Kevin Durant might be back. Ben Simmons might be playing. He might not play that game, but it's in Philly, so Kyrie Irving's going to be playing in that game. So that right there is what I'm circling and eyeing up. That stretch there, it can 3 games against Minnesota and 2 against New York, 1 against Minnesota, 2 against New York. Can that be enough to integrate James Harden into this team where those 4 games we could properly judge where this team stands for the rest of the season? There's 26 games left, 24 after the All-Star break. So then you're going to have 3, then those 4, that's 7 games. That means that after that, there's only 17 games left. So we're in the home stretch of the season. Is that enough time to really integrate James Harden and get a proper judgment of what this team will be?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I know in the scheme of things, that's not that many games, but a player of James Harden's caliber is not going to have a hard time doing what he does best. I mean, the pick and roll, he obviously has a little bit of a deficiency defensively, but I think sometimes that's overblown. Like, I've seen him be able to defend, certain players. Obviously, he's not going to be able to defend, the best of the best. But that's why I'm glad we kept Tybal, because I think he will be key, obviously in the playoffs for that reason. I think James Harden is, I think you already stated it. Maxi's a sponge. He's learning off him. I think Maxi's going to be the perfect kind of, bench role player, like, that's going to be able to step in and if Harden is struggling. Like, I think it's just going to end up being a match made in heaven, because what it does is getting Harden, it allows, like, so whoever gets double teamed, there's going to be somebody that's going to be open, whether it's Embiid or Harden. Yep. So I believe it's kind of going to now. It
could make Joel Embiid even better, because he's not going to face as many double teams.
Exactly, and I think not enough people are talking about the fact that now our friend, one of the players that you actually love, and I actually love him too, because I think he gets criticized harshly because he was in a role that he really wasn't suited for, and that is Tobias. Not enough people are talking about that now he's going back into the 3 where he's most comfortable and he can do some damage there. Like, so just say that Joel Embiid and Harden are having an off game. I think Tobias could be that guy that, like, okay, say Embiid and Harden are struggling. It's going to happen. Let's face it. It happens to everybody. Like, your stars kind of have a game where they're not doing as well. Tobias could come in and get 30 points. Like, because that's the kind of player he is. When he's
4 guys now in your starting lineup that could drop 30 on a given night now.
Exactly. And that's why I'm not too worried about him integrating into this offense, because I think he's the type of player that is just going to make everybody else better. When you have a player like that, it opens up the court. Like, there's not going to be a lot of like this, because they're going to have to, a lot of the attention is going to be on Harden and Embiid.
Absolutely. So, stupid question, but funny question. If he's back playing by that point, will Ben Simmons play here March 10th?
No.
I actually think they'll say at the press conference, because obviously, like Mark said earlier, Harden's introductory press conference is today at noon. Simmons is at 11:30 today, which is perfect, because some of those Philly reporters could sneak into that Brooklyn press conference and then have time to get over to the Philly press conference. I think they just hold out playing him, period, till after that, so that they don't have to deal with, well, we're resting him in Philly or something like that. Although I would love to see it. I would love to see him play in Philly and just see. I can't wait. 2 games a year that Ben Simmons will miss every single game every year going forward is the 2 games in Philly, probably, right?
He's not going to play. He's that weak. If he does, they should put a prop bet up for that. Will Ben Simmons play and bet?
Will Ben Simmons get the Frosty Freeze out, in Philly on March 10th for everybody? A little thank you to the fans for all the time here in Philly. I thought it was kind of bold that the Sixers, they put out like a thank you with like a picture of Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and Ben Simmons. Thanks for your time and contributions to Philly. It should have been just Seth and Andre, and they should have just not put Ben in there as a final little FU to Ben Simmons for what he's done. They should have eliminated him from that graphic, I think.
Matt, take the high road.
I never take the high road. Never. I always go on the low road. So anyway, this team is still not a complete team. Real quick, I know you wanted to talk about this too. The buyout market. It's about to be in full force here. Teams are cutting players left and right. Typical NBA. You buy these players out. They go to the team. First and foremost, all the names on the buyout market have to want to come to Philly now. A lot of guys on the buyout market are guys at the end of their careers or in transitional points of their career. They want to win a title. That helps them, A, end their career on a high note, or B, get them to the point where, well, I just played for a champion. I can get a bigger contract next year. So first off, Philly is a better team now with James Harden than it was without him. 2, now it's a destination where these guys are going to want to come here. So there's quite a large list of names on the buyout market. But do you agree that now players are going to want to come here, right?
Oh yeah, I mean you're 100% spot on as always. I mean, I don't see how they can't be the preferred destination. Like, obviously you have, a lot of people want to play with LeBron, so you have the Lakers. I think, Milwaukee to me is still a team. Obviously, you can't take them lightly with Giannis. I mean, he is amazing. Like, but Miami, surprising. I mean, I don't think people are surprised, but I mean, you got Jimmy Butler there. But I don't think there's too many places that really outrank, Philly as far as where someone wants to go. I'm not too familiar with the guys. That's why I was hoping you could help me. Well, I've heard a name I've heard a lot is Dragic, I think, or Dragic.
Goran Dragic, yeah. I mean, he was bought out. He was traded to San Antonio as part of a buyout thing. He's really close with Luka Doncic. So as soon as the trade went down, instantly there was already reports that he was already planning to go to Dallas to play with his, his national country mate there in Luka Doncic. But then all of a sudden, then right after that happened, then the James Harden deal happened, and Goran Dragic. I actually wanted Goran Dragic. One of my original trade proposals earlier this season when on a show when Scotty was here, I wanted them to make a trade with Toronto because he sat out the entire, just like Ben Simmons. Goran has sat out the entire season in Toronto for different reasons, but he's been sitting out this entire season in Toronto. And I was trying to get maybe OG Aminaru, and Goran Dragic for Ben Simmons. We're throwing Fred VanVleet, two of those guys from, Toronto for Ben Simmons, and getting Goran Dragic to be that veteran leader to back up and coach Tyrese Maxey, give him a little bit whatever. I actually, even though I love that thought process, now that James Harden is here, that's not what we need. We do need a backup point guard to an extent, but we need now, I think, more of a shooter, off the bench. Because, there's going to be, depending on Doc Rivers' rotation, which can always come into question how he rotates players, you don't really need that third point guard as much now because you've got James Harden, you've got Tyrese Maxey. They're going to play on the court together, but they're also going to play on the court separately without each other. So you really only have 5 or 10 minutes that you have a point guard needed on your bench. And Shake Milton for 5 or 10 minutes can fill that role now that he's back. You need more of a shooter on the bench. So here's some of the names. You got Dennis Schroeder. First off, I don't know how much you know about Dennis Schroeder, Jason, but 2 years ago, he turned down an $84 million contract extension to avoid free agency. He turned it down, bet on himself, and now he's a buyout candidate. Now he's making like $2 million a year. He bet on himself and failed. But he's still young enough where a good playoff run, because maybe he's not going to get an $84 million contract anymore, but he might be able to make up some of that loss. So Dennis Schroeder is a guy that I would love to see the Sixers bring in. Great guy off the bench. He's got a lot of experience. The guy is basically a scorer. He doesn't shoot lights out percentage-wise, but he gets his shot. He's basically everything we want Shake Milton to be eventually, but he could basically do it already. So I love Dennis Schroeder. You got DJ Augustine. He's another. He's okay. He's a little older, whatever. Gary Harris. He's a guy that was lights-out shooter for so long, and then he went and all of a sudden forgot how to shoot. Then all of a sudden in the past, couple of months, all of a sudden it's starting to come back together. So Gary Harris actually probably would be one of my top targets for the bench. And then Eric Bledsoe might get bought out. He's a guy we've been talking about bringing to Philly for, I feel like 3-4 years now. Eric Bledsoe in Philly. He hasn't been bought out yet. It's still just a rumor. So they're the three main guys. I mean, John Wall might get bought out, but do you want John Wall? At this point, I don't think so. So I think that's that. Couple other names, more like, wing players and all. DeAndre Bembry is a name to watch out for. He's a guy that's actually really good, and he's getting cut in Brooklyn just because they brought on 3 players, and he's like last man in their rotation. But DeAndre Bembry is a really young player that actually still has some, not just talent, but potential to get better in his career. So that's a name. I don't know if we really need a wing. We need a guard, and we need a backup center right now, but it's a name I want people to kind of keep an eye on. Then you go to the centers because we obviously need a backup center. I don't know. Did you see Paul Reed's missed dunk on Saturday night? He tried to go all fancy and go the reverse dunk, and he completely got blocked by the rim. Paul Reed is a fun guy, but guys, let's not have Paul Turner syndrome. Paul Reed is a third to fourth center. He cannot be Joel Embiid's backup come playoff time. So there's quite a few names out there. Robin Lopez. We already had one guy that Joel Embiid owns play on this team and play well in Andre Drummond. So why don't we go get Robin Lopez, another guy that Joel Embiid has owned in his career, and bring him in? Mr. Ugly. He's got the ugliest of sky hook shots, Robin Lopez. But he's a guy that can actually be a really good backup center, plays good defense. I mean, he's no backup center is going to be Joel Embiid offensively, but he could do enough to, not totally lose a game. I know everybody's talking about Tristan Thompson. He's won titles. He's played with LeBron. He's older, but Tristan Thompson, I mean, he might be an option for you. And then you got Enes Freedom. Enes Kanter's new name, Enes Freedom. He can't go back to his home country, but Boston just cut ties with him. He's a guy again. He's an okay starting center in the NBA. Just like some of these other guys, bringing him in as a bench role player, it might be a perfect fit for him at this point of his career. He plays solid defense. He rebounds the ball really well, and he can hit an 8-foot jump shot. He's got some post moves. So I think those are the names. But I think you need to focus on that backup center and that shooting guard before the backup point guard, before one of the forward positions and stuff like that. But if you can go out and get Harris and go get me any of those centers. Go get me Harris and Lopez to add to this bench. I think you've got now a 10-man bench where you don't need Furkan Korkmaz playing point guard anymore. You don't need or George Niang, playing 28 minutes a game anymore. I think you're pretty set to make a deep run.
I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I thought their biggest need was obviously. I agree. You want to get another shooter because you lost Curry.
And real quick, just to touch on that, don't rule out. There's been some rumors that one of Joel Embiid's favorite players from his time here in Philly, JJ Redick, has considered coming out of retirement to join this team. Now, I don't know if he's been sitting all year. He hasn't played. He's been drinking wine on his podcast every single day. I don't know what kind of playing shape he's in. But you can go get JJ Redick to play 10 minutes off the bench every single game to knock that. Then you can take Furkan Korkmaz out of your rotation altogether. I don't know. It's a thought process.
Wow, that would be amazing. I love JJ Redick.
Again, I don't like bringing guys out of retirement that haven't played, that might not be in the best game shape. But if he does that, even if he doesn't take Furkan out of the rotation, even if he's just like the last guy on the bench when Furkan's having an 0 for 9 type game, you throw him out there. Just the veteran leadership on the bench.
Well, the Rams did it with Eric Weddle.
Absolutely. Dude, did you see Eric Weddle tore his pec? I saw them working on his shoulder or arm on the Super Bowl, and they just taped it up, and he went back out there and finished the game, but he was playing with a torn pec. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean,
you know how painful that is? Dude, I'm just sitting there. I thought he dislocated his shoulder or something like that, but damn.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying I've seen it like where guys just, obviously are still in playing shape, but you're right. Yeah. I mean, to me, I think it's more about if you brought JJ Redick back, it would be more of like a leadership type thing because he definitely was a good leader when he was here. And it would help Joel Embiid to have another leader because I don't think James Harden is necessarily a leader. I don't look at him that way. I've never heard of him.
James Harden has flat out said last year when he went to Brooklyn, he said, I don't want to be the number one guy anymore at this point in my career. I want to extend my career as long as I can. I need help. I can't be the go-to guy scoring 35 points a game every single night, playing 45 minutes every night. Coming here to Philly, well, that's what he thought he was getting in Brooklyn. But do you realize in the year plus he was with Brooklyn, or not even a full year, he only played 17 games last year in the playoffs and this year with Kevin Durant.
Yeah, it's not.
Because of injuries for both sides of the equation, lots of things. He doesn't want to be that go-to guy anymore.
Not what he signed up for.
And that's what he's going to get here. Joel Embiid is still the guy.
Batman and Robin.
Yeah, absolutely. Sixers win tonight against Boston. Do they break the 8-game winning streak of the Boston Celtics?
Yes, it's happening.
All right. We'll see tomorrow.
Joel's going to have another, top tier performance. I don't know about that dunk. That dunk might have been the best.
That dunk was
definitely of this year.
Yeah, I think you can go to jail for murder for a dunk like that. All right. We had football on the conversation, so let's try to get a little bit of football in here before we wrap this show today. So we got about 15, 20 minutes left. So Cooper Kupp, Super Bowl MVP, Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL, Triple Crown winner. That's lead the league in receptions, yardage, and touchdown catches. That's only happened a few times in NFL history. And the Triple Crown, the Offensive Player of the Year, and the Super Bowl, only one wide receiver's ever done that before, and not in the same season, in different seasons, and that was Jerry Rice. So I know you want to talk about it. Was that possibly the best season ever from a wide receiver in the NFL?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I don't necessarily think it was one of the best years by a wide receiver. I think it was one of the best years as an offensive player in the NFL. Like, it's that good, and I don't think it's being talked about enough. And I kind of did a deep dive, and I went back and I looked at like some players that have done similar things where they had a monster regular season and then followed it up with a monster playoffs. And I found a couple guys that I would put right there, but once again, they didn't win the Triple Crown at their position. But I go back to Terrell Davis it was 1998. So Terrell Davis in 1998 rushed
for the second Super Bowl or the first Super Bowl?
Oh, that was the second. He rushed for 2,008 yards. He had 21 touchdowns. then he had another 25 receptions for 200 yards and 2 more touchdowns. So, and then he followed that up, that playoffs. He had 468 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. And in the Super Bowl, he had 102 yards and no touchdowns, but still 102 yards. So that's pretty damn good. I mean, and that's a running back. Mm-hmm. Then you had Steve Young, who I don't know if you read it, but I actually did an all-time season performance by quarterbacks, and I had Steve Young's season ranked number 2 of all time as far as quarterbacks. And that was in 90. Let me see here. Where are we at?
95, 96, somewhere in that range.
Trying to think. Sorry, I'm trying to pull this up.
Dead air.
No, it was 95.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that was the year they smoked the Broncos in the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, I don't know how. So in a regular season.
Anyway.
I didn't bring up the right stat. Anyway, Steve Young that year had an regular season combined with touchdowns and rushing yards. I believe it was 4,000 yards and 41 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And then he followed that up. What made that year so much better as far as, overall for quarterbacks, his playoff stats, he had 600 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions in 3 games. I mean, that's pretty impressive, right?
It was 1994, 35-10. Yeah, exactly. And he won the MVP that year.
So he was MVP.
Second in offensive player of the year. AP, he was the all-pro quarterback that year. Basically, swept the awards. He pretty much led the league in almost every statistical category that year.
And then on top of that, threw for 300 yards and 6 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. I mean, that to me is insane. So that's why I had that up there. And then I had Jerry Rice. It was 95. Mm-hmm. The year they beat San Diego in the Super Bowl. So that season, Jerry Rice in 95 had 1,800 yards receiving, 15 touchdowns.
All less.
Less than Kupp. Yeah, that's what I mean. And then in the playoffs, he had 230 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. So this is what I'm getting at. I don't think Cooper Kupp is being talked about. Like, this season is insane. Mm-hmm. So he had the second most yards ever by a receiver, only by 20 yards to Calvin Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Won the Triple Crown, won Offensive Player of the Year. But I'm looking at what he did in the playoffs as a whole. Mm-hmm. This is his playoff stats in 3. Now, granted, it was 4 games because obviously they had the extra game with the wild card. But he had 45 receptions for 625 yards and 7 touchdowns. Dude. I don't know. Well, I don't know what your thoughts are, but
it's an amazing season. I've got his career stats up here. And I just look at the fact that last year he only played in 15 games last year. So I'll go back 2 years in 2019, where he played in full 16 games. And 16 games versus 17 games, it's an extra season. But in 2019, he still had, it's just one game doesn't make that much of a difference. 94 catches to 145 catches. It's that one game didn't make that much of a difference. 1,100 yards to 1,900 yards. That didn't make that much of a difference at one more game. I just think it was, how do I say it? Could have been Jared Goff's fault partially. I think that's possibly part of it. Goff versus Matthew Stafford. You went to having a better quarterback. But man, you just watch any game, even if you had never watched a Rams game and you just watched the Super Bowl, you knew going into that game that Cooper Kupp was an elite wide receiver, right? And I always say this about Travis Kelce too. How teams do this to Travis Kelce. When you're that big of an important part of a team's offense, how do these guys continually get open? And that's what makes them great. Cooper Kupp, and if you want to, throw Travis Kelce, because I always use the comparison, because Travis Kelce's like 18 feet tall. How these guys, every single play, They find the soft spot in the defense. They find a way to get open. They go to the right spot every single time. Their quarterback can throw the ball before they even come out of their breaks on a route and know that their wide receiver is going to be there. It's the details of what Cooper Kupp does. Multiple of those catches in the Super Bowl. There was nobody within 5 yards of him when he caught the ball on the drives, like around the middle of the field. And it's not just the 145 catches. You get 145 catches by being open and running the right routes the right ways over. And it's not like Cooper Kupp. Teams aren't fearing Cooper Kupp, doing a Deshaun Jackson and burning them for 80 yards of play. So it's not like they have to worry about, playing off on him. He finds a way to get open every single play. Well, and that's what excites me about Cooper Kupp is how is he open every play? Because he is open on every single play.
Well, even the second touchdown, he wasn't open.
Right.
But the route that he ran, him and Stafford threw the ball to the right of him. If you saw that play, Stafford kind of arced the ball to the point where he knew that Kupp was going to be able to kind of turn his body and catch it. If that's thrown any other spot, it's either an interception or a drop ball. But they were that much in sync. And I agree. I think sometimes that has a lot to do with it. Because I remember a play last year similar to that where Davante Adams kind of went this way, kind of in motion, and then all of a sudden quickly turned the other way and ran like an in route, and there was nobody near him because he kind of they already planned it. Like he called the shot to Rodgers. Oh, I'm going to do this and then go that way. And, it's a touchdown. And Davante Adams is similar in that he's always open. And you look at these guys that do that, but it's their target. That's why their targets are so much because they're always open. That's I guess kind of why a lot of people are.
If you go up against a team like the Rams, how can you let a guy like Cooper Kupp be open on every single play? You obviously are game planning to stop a guy like him. Well, you weren't game planning to stop Cam Akers. You weren't game planning to stop Tyler Higbee. You're game planning to stop Cooper Kupp. But yeah, and your whole focus was on Cooper Kupp, and he still found ways to be open regularly. Well, and that's a testament to how he probably studies a great deal of film against the defenses. He knows where the soft spots are in every single defensive scheme that his opponent's going to play. And he finds a way to find that open spot 145 times in the regular season. That doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't.
No, I mean, he's like I said, right now, he's probably the number one wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, at this moment in time.
I mean, in PPR leagues, he's going to have to be considered to be the number one wide receiver off the boards next year.
I mean, Davante Adams.
It's going to be really hard to have 145 catches a second year in a row, obviously. But, you have to, in a PPR league, you got to consider taking Kupp over Adams in fantasy-wise.
Yeah, I mean, they're similar in age. I don't think that you can go wrong with either one, obviously. But
anyway,
I do believe that his season ranks right up there with the all-time greats as far as greatest seasons at a position in that sport.
On paper, it's got to be considered the best. I mean, because he's the Triple Crown winner, Offensive Player of the Year, and MVP. No one's ever done all three of those things in the same season. Secondly, he won the Super Bowl. His team won. So not only did he have a great personal season, his team won the championship.
And he won the MVP.
And he won the MVP as part of that whole thing. So on paper, offensively, you've got to consider him probably the best season ever for an offensive skilled position player. You have to.
I mean, I don't think
it's not a question of whether it's the second or third or whatever. No one's ever done what he's done, and he won the Super Bowl. So I rank it as the best season ever for a wide receiver.
Definitely wide receiver. Like I said, the only guy I had.
You might put him in the quarterback. You might put Tom Brady's 50 touchdown season ahead
I looked
of him.
at Terrell Davis as being close because of he had all the similar things. He won the Triple Crown in rushing and then won the MVP. But I think Terrell Davis that year they might be the only similar
and
one.
They won the Super Bowl that year too.
Everybody doing it.
It's great to have these. Like you could say that Calvin Johnson, Megatron, his great season where he set the receiving record.
They didn't.
But what did they do as a team? Stats are great, but winning the title and having the stats, even
did
better.
everything. There's nothing else that he could have done.
There was
Like,
literally nothing else he could have done
everything.
other than set the receiving yard record. That's the only thing he could have done. Have 20 or 30 more catches or yards.
Or set the reception record, because he only lost that by 4.
Yeah,
Michael
exactly.
Thomas 149. Ooh,
yeah.
I
mean, if you're going to nitpick, that might be the only thing you could do. And Michael Thomas, he's got the record, but did they win the Super Bowl that year?
I don't even think they made. Well, they might have made the playoffs. Probably one and done.
Anyway, all right. We got 4 minutes here. I do want to address the Kyler Murray grumblings that are going on in Arizona really quickly. Again, another quarterback, another star in another sport, not happy. Dude, this guy's been in the league for only 3 years, and he's already starting trouble. And I want to read you a quote here. I don't know if you saw Chris Mortensen, respected voice, a respected reporter, okay, is put out a report. Where's the quote here? That's his quote. Anyway, I can't find it now on the screen because I've had too many tabs open on my screen at one time. But basically, Mortensen said on Sunday during the Super Bowl preview show that Kyler Murray is perceived as selfish and immature. And that's the problem. Here it is. Murray is described as self-centered, immature, and a finger pointer, and that is per Chris Mortensen. Chris Mortensen's not saying that without verifying those sources. Is this all Kyler Murray came out yesterday and said this is all being overblown, that he doesn't really want out of Arizona. He just wants to win, blah, blah, blah. But is this a little too soon for Kyler Murray to be, pumping his chest and trying to make demands and stuff like that?
Absolutely. I don't think he's done anything in his career to warrant, him being on this list. Like, listen, I like Kyler Murray. I like what he brings to the field, like the fact of his athleticism. But I think, talk about a guy that was really overrated. I mean, Kyler Murray, in my fantasy league, was taken number 1 over Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Can I get in on that league?
No, he was literally being viewed as the number 1 draft coming into this year as far as quarterbacks in the early part of last year, like before, obviously, the season happened and all that. But this is what I'm getting at. Like, I'm not saying that he doesn't have skill or he can't be good, but you're right. Why is he running his mouth? He should be looking to get better, because he obviously, now I know, everyone can make the excuse, well, when he lost DeAndre Hopkins, he was nothing. Well, if it takes a great receiver to make a quarterback great, is that quarterback really great?
Yeah.
At the end of the day? Yeah. I mean, we've said the same thing with Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts got DeAndre Hopkins, would that make him better? I think almost absolutely it would make him better. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, obviously he got hurt, but, consistently he's been top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, right? I mean, am I wrong about that?
No.
Putting that with a guy that's thrown to J-Jaw and Rager for the whole career, that's not going to help them? It is. Does it necessarily mean that Jalen Hurts is going to become an elite number, top 10 quarterback? No, but my point is that you look at what DeAndre Hopkins did for Kyler Murray as far as his progression, and then he lost them and he kind of went backwards. What does that show you? You need weapons. Unless you are the elite of elite guys like, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, guys that just throw these receivers wide open or throw the receivers open, then you need better weapons to be a better at your position. And that's, I think, all that you and I have ever said about Jalen Hurts. Like, Jalen Hurts might not ever be a top 10 quarterback, but could he be better? Yes, but you got to surround him with people. And I think that's the perfect example is Kyler Murray.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, his numbers have gone up every year, but again, he's only been in the league 3 years. And it's one thing if you're Aaron Rodgers and you're unhappy with Green Bay and you want to demand out, or Russell Wilson, who says he's going to stay in Seattle, but who knows? But if he wants to force his way out, all right, these guys have earned the right to do that. They've been in the league for 10, 15 years. They've won championships. They're MVP. Kyler Murray's been in the league for 3 years. He's still on his rookie deal. And that's what I actually think it comes down to. Kyler Murray sees this is the first offseason in his career, because first round rookies have 5-year contracts. This is the first year though he's eligible for an extension, and I think it all comes down to money. Well, you're in your 3rd year and you're already starting this trouble. Yeah, that's not good. And there was grumblings that Cliff Kingsbury might be out eventually in Arizona. Maybe the Cliff Kingsbury Kyler Murray relationship isn't great, dude. Kyler Murray has not earned the right to be starting this kind of grumblings at all. And if it's at this point, can you imagine a year or two when his rookie contract's up, what kind of grumblings are going to be going on in Arizona? Dude, that's
not a good look.
And that just goes to show how great Jalen Hurts is off the field. Because Jalen Hurts, you don't hear Jalen Hurts demanding contracts. Jalen Hurts wanting more, this or that. Jalen Hurts is just one season done. Let's start working on next season. The off the field intangibles of Jalen Hurts compared to Kyler Murray. I mean, fantastic. So yeah. Anyway, we got to wrap the show up there for the day.
Well, real quick, I didn't.
Uh-oh.
Well, I didn't know if you heard the report, but I heard a report yesterday that Sean McVay might retire.
I heard that. I didn't really.
Another thing that came out of that and Aaron Donald, both out of nowhere. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah.
Here,
we don't really have time to dive into it, but yeah, it's kind of crazy that those kind of rumors come out right. I mean, Sean McVay's 38 years old. Is he already burned out? I mean, maybe. Who knows? We're gonna wrap it up. Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media, live Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Make sure you're following us on Facebook, on Twitch, on YouTube. You hit the subscribe button. On Twitter, you hit the follow button. Make sure you're sharing this show out all the time when you're watching the show. Retweet, likes, shares, subscribes, thumbs up. It helps those algorithms, whatever that word algorithm means. It helps them, helps us continue to grow the show. Big, exciting things coming. Some giveaways coming in the next week or two. I just ordered 2 James Harden jerseys, and I'm going to give one of them away live on the air. So you've got to be following the shows and following me on Twitter at Beard of Knowledge, following Jason at Mustang3651, and following Mark at Mark with a C Moscatelli, because he's part of the morning show team as well. Make sure you're following all of us, because that's the only way that you can win the James Harden jersey and whatever other things we got going on. So for that, we're going to end the show today. Tomorrow, we'll recap the Sixers Celtics. I'm not sure. If you have a topic you want us to discuss on the morning show, just hit one of us up on Twitter. Let us know what you want us to cover. We'll dive into it. So everybody have a great Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow. And as we end every show, go Birds.